notary seal and tampered chart. Sold your oath for cartel gold. Now El Paso knows the lies you told. You're a fake, a fraud, a liar in a suit, and the ghost of Richard Halliday's coming for you. You see, he didn't just run for office. He ran a con. He didn't just drop a name. He dropped the truth. He needed a Mexican name, Montoya, for the vote. His campaign promise was fake too. Death for Cruz, yes, that's the vow he told you. But a plea deal was made with his hand. He's a liar at the cartel's command. You're a fake and a fraud, serving the FTOs, trafficking lies across border roads. James Montoya, a liar in a suit, and the ghost of Richard Halliday's coming for you. Oye, Montoya, got ears like satellite dishes but still can't hear the people screaming fake loud and clear. This ain't politics. This is a cartel network. This is an FDO! Ya basta! The people see clear. Your eyes saw the big gig, not the victim's tears. Justice for Richard Halliday. Fight, 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 fight. Expose this fake DA hiding in plain sight. Oh yeah! Montoya, filled now with a 2028 date. Ni madre sin! It's a system rot from the cartel within. Fraudulent forms, fake notary applied. He's illegally sitting, should be indicted, tried. You can't fight for the slain with a DA this fake. They're laundering justice for the cartel's sake. The truth's in the timestamps, the crime's in the redactions. And if the DA's the problem, then the solution, federal action. Esto no se queda así.
Because I was the hunted, and now I'm the hunter. It's a big difference. Big difference.
Oh yeah.
Hi, everybody. Wow, that's a lot to unpack there. That's a lot to unpack. So let's get started. 2007 days since Richard was forcibly removed from his barracks room there on Fort Bliss. Fort Bliss, the sister city, the sister base of Fort Huachuca. The Fort Bliss is also the home of the El Paso, well, the Mormon faction El Paso cartel. I'm going to have to get used to saying all that because it's the truth, and it's going. I think it's going to spread across the world, really. Richard was a whistleblower. I think he blew the lid off of that whole thing. And it's big. It's really big. So it's like Mount Hood. I remember when Mount Hood blew up in Oregon, the whole top blew off of it, and my grandfather sent us a little bit of the ash from Fort Hood, and sent it to us as a little token, a reminder. Yeah. Amazing. And Richard was, because he was a whistleblower that really, he wanted to be a CID agent, right? He wanted to be a CID agent. He was very keen in law enforcement, justice. I mean, he was all about justice and law enforcement. That's what he wanted his future to be. And a good one, a good one. Um, and what he found was corruption, you know, at Fort Bliss, and he reported it, and really, he would never stand by and watch children be hurt. He just wouldn't do that. And of course, there's a lot more to it than that. And so they had to plot and plan, and they did. This, and you asked me who they are, the Mormon faction El Paso cartel, in alliance with the Mexican cartel, and the intelligence community in the United States, which is, because we have confirmation that the part of the alliance was to give the Mexican cartel access to our intelligence databases. Okay. And why would they do that? Well, they wanted to know what agents, what whistleblowers, witnesses, informants were involved in any of the cases that might come against them. And so, of course, the need for very bad actors and the Plenitude crematorium, right? So that's been confirmed. Also, that Assistant Special Agent in Charge, Colin Witten, is the one that gave the Mexican cartel Richard's identity, putting a target on it. He's really one of the very, very main individuals that's responsible for the death of Richard. I would say he's probably top one or two, maybe top two. Colin Witten, Mormon faction, El Paso cartel member. Okay. And so Richard was taken down to the basement room. It was the arms room and his life was taken. His body was stolen. His body was abused and misused, and trafficked across the border. Evidence indicates that his organs were harvested, and partial remains, what was left of him, was dumped at the Plenitude crematorium, owned by Rosa Maria Purchase Arellano Caron. And her family living next to Beto O'Rourke. And in connection and ties to Martha Alicia Mendez Aguilar, La Diabla, who was using illegal C-sections to harvest babies and organs from crisis pregnancy women, targeting them and luring them in with promises. She's been arrested, and it's just, spiraling down into hell, right? What they were doing. I mean, well, they're just demons, right? That's where they live. They're just demons. And this is very connected to Fort Huachuca. Fort Huachuca is the intelligence hub for the U.S. Army, and of course, our first CAO. We've had 6, probably more, 6 CAOs, casualty affairs officers, assigned to our son's case, to our family. And the first one, absolutely saboteur, and a saboteur, and also an asymmetric warfare officer, which is all that training is in Fort Huachuca, TRADOC, So we knew that TRADOC was involved. We knew that asymmetric, I've been saying that for years, that he was caught red-handed performing asymmetric warfare tactics on us, on our family, and we've turned all that in. So there is a huge connection with, I would say, even with Fort Hood, Fort Bliss, and Fort Huachuca. This is a military internal, um, an internal, hostile, mutinous um, network of traitors to our country and our national security, breaching our national security, risk to all of our volunteer sons and daughters, a huge risk, and they're up to no good, and they're in connection. Okay, they're tied to the Mormon faction El Paso cartel in alliance with the Mexican cartels. And that's why Fort Huachuca, what Mitch Snow, if you don't know who Mitch Snow is, he's a whistleblower or a witness to things that he saw on September 8th and 9th of 2025, the 2 days preceding the brutal public taking of life of Charlie Kirk. And what he saw there has been confirmed to be believed by Candace Owens really today. I think she believed him, and I think she believed that Mitch Snow saw Brian Harple there with others. But she says she questioned if Erika Kirk was there, if he really actually saw her. And today, I think she's crossed that threshold and is absolutely behind what Mitch Snow saw the days prior to the absolute betrayal of Charlie Kirk. And somebody wanted Charlie Kirk dead, okay? And that wasn't a secret. We know that from evidence that before he was killed, like Richard was asking for a transfer, okay? He was under whistleblower protection guards, right? He wanted out. He wanted out of his unit. They knew. They wanted to keep him there because they wanted to keep him under their control and command. And that's very similar to what Charlie Kirk, I mean, it's like the same playbook as what Charlie Kirk was saying. This is, was his organization. And yet he was under threat and he was being bullied and he was in fear of his life. He was in fear of his life. Like Richard told us, he was in fear of his life. So, what happened today is just explosive because we have so much breaking news, and that's why I'm coming on so late. Here it is, 1:00 in the morning, but we have been in communication with government officials and also law enforcement because everything is it's blowing up, the top is blowing off, and the truth is coming out, and Richard is central to all of it. Richard, and I know that that seems, I don't want it to be that. I don't want Richard to be central to all of this, but he is. He's central to all of this. He's central to the Walmart shooting. He's central to um, the tampering of the 2020 election. He is to the Jeffrey Epstein, John of God pipeline. Okay. He's central to what was going on at Fort Huachuca. When you have leads that are Farnsworth, and then you have people that are tampering with a crime scene in Charlie Kirk's case being Farnsworth, when you have the Mormon faction El Paso cartel being involved in both, they're involved in both, y'all. And what Richard was whistleblowing, having direct contact with all of that and not staying silent, and reporting and being in communication with Washington D.C., being in communication with FBI Houston, because FBI El Paso was not trustworthy, right? Was absolutely not trustworthy. So being in communication with CPS multiple times, being in communication with IG and his command, being in communication with the El Paso Police Department, calling 911 multiple times. And then there's the tampering of the record, right? So the tampering of the record to erase a lot of this, so but people make copies, right? People make copies. It's just like they view it as a trophy or something. It's kind of like Leilani Hart, who's a prime suspect in the taking of our son's life and the cover up and everything. And really part of this the operations of the Mormon faction El Paso cartel. Okay, she's part of those main operations. When she files a confession of, facilitating the worst type of crimes against children, including our son's platoon leader engaging in unnatural relationships with his father and brother while he's in uniform, which is illegal. And more, she confesses to a lot more. The worst type of crimes against a 7-year-old in her master bedroom by multiple members of her household. And not reporting that promptly in a timely fashion. That's a crime. Her illegal status, that's a crime. Illegal weapons, possession of unregistered illegal weapons, that's a crime. All of these are confessions, and she passed that around, right? It was like a badge of honor. It was like a trophy for her. And, we have the case numbers even, because of the access that the alliance had made with the cartel, see. Then she was able to access the numbers, her case numbers, which you normally don't get. So, this is really very similar because it has the same fingerprints on it. It has, like what I said last night, like a facial recognition um, application. This is a Mormon faction El Paso cartel recognition application with nodes, that if the nodes are in the right place, like a fingerprint, it's like warning, 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 and it goes off, and this is the same nodes. Well, um, and uh, and with Fort Huachuca and Erika Kirk and all of the evidence, and I should probably put that up too, um, what I'm talking about. So Erika Kirk, you know, this was leaked, this internal call, what is it, 6 days later. And I might have got that wrong in my post. I need to make sure. But it was 6 days later, this internal Zoom call that she had with the TPUSA staff, right? And so Candace Owens, because Candace Owens used to work for TPUSA, right? And she had this very close relationship with Charlie Kirk because they were both, gifted and talented. They were gifted and talented. You connect, right? You connect. And she was working for them. She made friends there. She gained trust there. She left them. And this happened to Charlie Kirk and people on the inside that were not happy with the failed security team. This security team, just so you know, is paid a lot of money. They're not a typical security team. And in this day and age with drones, they should never have put Charlie Kirk in a hole, okay, where everybody's above him. And they should absolutely have secured every roof, okay, every roof. But we know that there is so many irregularities and nothing makes sense, and that people are investigating this every little frame of every video they can get. And so there are very compelling theories of what happened, what took Charlie Kirk's life, that really indicate, this failure of the security team doesn't seem like their failure, right? And it doesn't seem that TPUSA, and who is represented by Erika Kirk, she is the new CEO, right, or COO or whatever. She is the leader of TPUSA, and TPUSA, and then separately, as even though it's the same person, but the widow of Charlie Kirk, they don't look at that security team as being a failure. Matter of fact, they are still her security team that get loads of money. It would be very interesting to know how much they get paid, because they get paid loads of money. And she doesn't seem to be afraid, right? So that means she knows that she's not in danger. They're not after her, or something more sinister, right? So maybe something more sinister. So, but the fact that she has kept this team, this company, indicates that they did their job, that they didn't fail after all. What does that mean? That Candace Owens has now revealed motives, and that what happened to Charlie Kirk was an inside operation, an inside betrayal, and that by the reaction and the display that we have witnessed over the months, it not only indicates but confirms to Candace Owens that Mitch Snow is on to something, that this was an internal operation, that the suspicion of it has just gone to the next level. That's what this means. And to many that are clear, what are the motives, And I've heard many different motives from many different people. And so, one person was telling me that Jackie O, right? Jackie Kennedy, she feared for her security. Absolutely. Something is weird here because there's no concern in this phone call 5 days after Charlie Kirk publicly, brutally, shockingly, traumatizingly, I don't know if that's a word, but I'm going to use it. It traumatized me. I wasn't a huge follower of Charlie Kirk, right? It's more of my children. When I saw that, and I remember exactly where I was sitting in my daughter's van and opened up the phone, and there it was. And it was traumatizing. Something is, and I don't want to guess, there is indications that are so strong that this was an inside operation. And if it's an inside operation, there has to be motive. Why did somebody want to get rid of Charlie Kirk? Why would this, and it being tied to Fort Huachuca means it's tied to the Mormon faction El Paso cartel in alliance with the Mexican cartels. We know that Fort Huachuca has tunnels. We know that they were gun running. We know that they have already illegal operations with Mexican cartel. We know we don't have to prove that Fort Bliss and Fort Huachuca are connected. They are absolutely connected. Absolutely, we don't have to prove it at all. Anyone that is any way familiar with those two bases know they're connected. So when we say that it is connected to the Mormon faction El Paso cartel in alliance with the Mexican cartel, that is absolutely, there is just no question about it because they are so connected. And Fort Huachuca is the intel. I mean, they're not going to infiltrate Fort Bliss without infiltrating Fort Huachuca. They're the intel, the TRADOC, the asymmetric warfare. And they have tunnels right there on the border that have been doing this for a long time. I mean, look at Mitch Snow is absolutely critical, his witness to all of this, because he detected those tunnels 35 years ago. And when he said that to me, he goes, "You might think I'm crazy." No, my father told me because I was born at White Sands. My dad was ADA. I went to school in El Paso. I lived on Fort Bliss. I used to jog Fort Bliss with my dad. He told me there were tunnels everywhere, all under, under Fort Bliss. There are tunnels, vast amount of tunnels. And of course, along the border, and we know we have confirmation that there are tunnels under El Paso ISD schools that are along the border. So, so I didn't think Mitch Snow was crazy at all. I thought that he was genuine, right? When I spoke with him, um, and this connection with our son's case, with the Charlie Kirk case, I didn't have to have any convincing because it only took me a day, not even a day, with our family to investigate the connection, to know that there was a connection between what happened to President Trump that was unsuccessful, those that were involved in that, the names that they did release, and you have to do it very quickly, and what happened to um, Charlie Kirk because of Jerry Twiggs, right? Jerry Twiggs and his grandson, and Tyler Robinson, and all the names that were released, knowing that it had absolutely ties to this Mormon faction El Paso cartel. Um, and as time has gone on and more information has come out, and then especially today, which is just jaw-dropping breaking news, that now Candace Owens is giving us the the motives, the motives. So, and I did post those motives. No, one thing that everybody has to also remember in this, or that I would like to remind people of, is that there are ongoing investigations, things that are not reported in the news, but we have confirmation from our government officers and the law enforcement that uh, those loyalties that we have established in over 5.5 years of investigating day in and day out. And not only investigating, but documenting um, and filing all of this. Okay, we have been filing. So in order to file, you have to have emails and numbers and connections and all of that, with all of the agencies and organizations. And the things that we have filed are so jaw dropping and compelling. And one day that will all come out in a book, right? It needs to come out in a book. What we have, from the El Paso Criminal Law Magistrate Court to Montoya, from Bill Hicks to Montoya, to the cartel, to the judges, to the medical examiner, to the Mayellas, everything about the Walmart case, everything about the command structure, Fort Bliss, the retaliation that we got, what we caught them in engaging in against us to obstruct justice. In our son's case, like, for example, Nadal Baim and all of his connections, and they're just telling us, oh, he's just a nobody. And of course, Danae Katzen and the family in the Walmart case that had Richard's credit cards and financial documents after he was no longer alive. And, and it just goes on and on and on what we have detected, identified, documented, and filed over and over, and about so many individuals and so many agencies. Of course, Connell Wetton, and we haven't forgotten about Neto and his wife and the intelligence community there on Fort Bliss. And then, of course, you have Justin Underwood and his part in all of this with filing in or submitting tampered evidence, and just Felix Valenzuela and his part in all of this, and um, receiving Joe Spencer's audios that prove that what we're saying about the Walmart case, about Patrick Crucius's autism, about the multiple shooters, about the multiple surrenders, the lack of any kind of racism, the lack of any kind of hate crime, with Patrick Crucius, and the under that definition, okay, under that definition, but that there were multiple shooters, that this was very El Paso Mormon faction cartel linked, the Walmart shooting too, and Beto linked, of course, Beto O'Rourke linked, Allen, Texas linked, because of Crucius is from Allen, Texas, where Dan Flood is from. That leads Erika Kirk's Security, and what is her relationship with Dan Flood, right? It seems to be very, very close, a very close relationship, because she's kept him on after he failed, but it looks like she doesn't consider that was a failure. Okay. And that is like the smoking gun, really. That to me is like the smoking gun. And so this is all very connected and connected to, and I want to make sure that people understand this. This is connected to the Jeffrey Epstein pipeline that goes all the way down and hits Brazil and the John of God farms. Okay. Wow. It's just gives you chills. But there it is. That's the, you know, there's no photoshopping of that. There's no AI of that. That is all documented over years and years. I mean, so, what are the motives? When you're connecting Charlie Kirk and Richard's cases and Fort Huachuca and TPUSA and Fort Bliss, and with the Mormon faction El Paso cartel in alliance with the Mexican cartels, that's in alliance with John of God and Oprah and Beto O'Rourke and La Diabla, it puts a picture together that you really don't want to look at. You don't really want to look at it because it's really a horror story. And then you add Plenitude Crematorium, the picture of hell on earth, right? and connecting those with the funeral homes that are transnational funeral homes that are absolutely engaging in major fraud, um, and just crimes against humanity. Okay, crimes against humanity and sacrilege. When you have bodies just laying there year after year after year, and they were years old, these bodies that they were flesh peddling um at this crematorium that was raided, over 400 at just one go. But over the years, how many went through there? And I do want to make a correction. The correction, while I'm thinking about it, because I've been meaning to do this, is that the ovens at the crematorium were reported to not have been working, not in operation. But we have evidence that the night of the raid, the night following the raid, that the ovens at the crematorium lit up and they ran all night long, and and the smoke was just atrocious. Okay? So I want to make sure that people know that they were flesh peddling, that it wasn't because of a broken oven. Okay? So that is because the the news stories reported that it was inoperable, but we have other evidence now. So I just wanted to put that out there, and please share it. Please make a post about that and share it, because it's important evidence. Um, it changes the whole case. It changes the whole case. Um, so, I mean, what they were doing was absolutely crimes against humanity and sacrilege. Crimes against God. That's what that means. So possibilities for TPUSA for an internal operation against Charlie Kirk. What would be the motives for that? Well, to if Charlie Kirk found out about the tunnels, or any kind of trafficking or operation that had infiltrated TPUSA, or any kind of money laundering that was going on in TPUSA, things like that, which we have indication because he was asking for a Doge type audit of TPUSA. That means, like a very intense audit. Um, that to stop from that happening, that could be a motive, right? That could be a motive. And then the second one, to preserve the operations, because how sweet it is to be so criminal and yet cover it up with with Bible verses, right? And I'm a Christian, right? I'm a Christian. Um, I my favorite book, right? There's no, and anyone that knows me knows that I'm telling you the truth. Um, but when they use Christianity as a deception, right? Like the devil, well, did God tell you? Well, uh, to deceive, to use God's name in vain, to absolutely deceive people for financial gain, for power, for political power, for a cover of illegal activities. Um, you know, this is, they want to keep that operation going. That would be the motive. So the other one is self aggrandizement. We know that Erika Kirk, so this is just something that somebody suggested. This is a suggested motive, and I thought it was pretty compelling because there is a long history here that Erika Kirk wanted to get popular. She wanted to get into the movies. She wanted to get in front of the camera. She wanted that kind of self-aggrandizement. She wanted that kind of career, and you have to get a foot into that, into Hollywood or whatever. And you know, so she's pretty much she's pretty well known around the world now, right? So that might give her some platforms. Um, and so that could be a motive. And then to seize political power, TPUSA was getting very politically influential, very, very political influential. Matter of fact, the vice president came from the recommendation of TPUSA. And so, of Charlie Kirk. And so, if, you don't want to have that power withdrawn or blown up or whatever. So that could be also, if you threaten that kind of power, that could be a motive. If Charlie Kirk wanted to say, well, I don't want it anymore. I don't want it anymore. I don't want that kind of power anymore. That could be a motive. Um, it really seems like Charlie Kirk was not going along anymore with the direction that the internal hostile um, and you know uh, I don't have to guess that there is an internal hostile. We know now because of the firings and because of the recording of one of the staff members during the firing. It was very hostile. What do I mean by hostile? They can be really kind, but when you make $250 million, like $250 million in just a couple months since Charlie Kirk's death, then and you're firing people that were working, and uh, like you're hostile to them, right? You're hostile. You're afraid. You're showing fear, and I think that this whole thing is just showing a lot of fear. Absolutely. Which I'm going to get into with Montoya and do like a little overview of that video because there's so much to unpack there. That video that I showed you at the beginning. But we'll end this with the last, and I think it's probably the most important motive that could possibly be for what they did to Charlie Kirk, and that is because of the ongoing investigations. There are absolutely ongoing investigations. And we know that that's going on in El Paso and Fort Bliss. And it's very tied to our son's case. And if it's going on um, at Fort Bliss, it's going on at Fort Huachuca. Okay? Because they are tied. You know, they're sister bases. They're very tied. And Richard's case also includes the asymmetric warfare officer, uh, includes TRADOC. And so this is why this is so compelling because we know that they're also engaged in cartel activity there. Um, yeah, to really try to thwart accountability. Um, so it's going to be very, very interesting because boy, they put on a show. They put on a show, and they try to be very deceptive and distract from what's going on. So, okay, let's go back to the Montoya. Um, because I think that that is really, really important to understand what just happened and what's going on in the 34th Judicial District Attorney's Office um, right now. So there's been a death. Okay, there's been a death. His name is Peter Melendez, and an investigator in the DA's office. And we have, of course, our um, government officials and law enforcement, uh, are really concerned about this death. And why? Because um, since Montoya, like what, a year now, a disastrous year, he has deputized 27 peace officers, like investigators to peace officers, for the DA's office for the purposes, and the word that we're getting, the reports that we're getting, is seemingly to patrol and police the courthouse. Okay? 27 police officers to police the courthouse, to essentially, what that means to us, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but it means like to bully the judges, bully lawyers, um, bully witnesses, get information, to patrol and to police the courthouse with a police force. That's what it seems that Montoya just did. Okay. So it seems very, very shady. And now we have one of them that is no longer alive, and that's Peter Melendez, who we have confirmed that he was targeted and bullied. And so this is the place where you should feel the most safe. It's kind of like the barracks. Richard should have felt the most safe in his barracks room. And Peter Melendez needed to feel the safest in the DA, working for the DA's office. He shouldn't fear for his safety. And yet, the information we're getting is that he was absolutely targeted and bullied. And we're questioning the whole narrative about what happened to him because of the information that we're getting. And I think that's important because the word that we have is the DA's office is in chaos, okay? Is in chaos. And what is causing this? Well, we have been reporting on it for just about a year, right? Almost a year. We've been reporting on it. We've been reporting on the 34th Judicial District Attorney's Office under Bill Hicks as being in chaos. I mean, real chaos, being usurped. And with James Montoya, it's no different. It's a higher level. It's a major deception. It's now we have a 27 police force to cover up for Mr. 2028 stamp. Okay. I mean, that's absolutely what this looks like, that he's putting, a police force around him, doing some dirty work, because he is not legally installed. So even the deputizing of these police officers is invalid. They're not valid, because he is not the DA. He's not the DA, even though he is acting as an imposter DA, trying to deceive everyone into believing that he's a DA, but he's not the DA. Legally, on paper, he's not the DA because he failed to install properly and even tampered with the documents, hence the nickname Mr. 2028 stamp. Okay, James 2028 stamp Montoya. And he also deceived the voters because his name is James Bonneau Montoya. It was James Andrew Bonneau, and then he changed his name to James Bonneau Montoya. And when that happens, especially when you're doing this kind of election and DA stuff, you have to sign your name and even campaigned with your full name. Um, so it's very deceptive and very illegal, and I'll let the lawyers work all that out. Um, uh, because, right now he built a little police force for himself on taxpayers' dime. It's the taxpayers that are paying for this. And it seems very brown shirtish, very brown shirtish. Um, and, where um, judges now, not every judge, there's 5 judges, including Anthony Aoun, that are imposters too in the criminal law magistrate court. But there's a bunch of other judges that are now being policed by these Montoya's police force, paid for by taxpayers' money. Yeah, this what law enforcement is like in El Paso? No, thank you. Is this what justice is like in El Paso? No, thank you. And I think that everyone needs to, you know, post and post and post and post and write. I mean, I don't know if what are you going to write? Veronica Escobar? Oh, sorry. It is almost 2 o'clock. I better get to bed. So this is really breaking news, and that's why I have to come on. And there's no time to sleep. I have to take the time out of the sleep to come on and make sure that everyone knows what is going on in this and the connections. And of course, we spend a lot of time making the music and making the memes and everything, the maps and that. Um, so you have uh, an understanding of what's happening, and um, when all of this really comes out in the open, that you won't be traumatized, that you won't be shocked um, of the internal betrayal in Richard's case and also in Charlie Kirk's case. And of course, Montoya is just a big face of that internal betrayal. And and I'm not picking on one side or the other. I put up Ted Cruz's, right? Ted Cruz at absolutely, and he still could probably do the right thing, but I don't know. He is taking money from the Mormon faction El Paso cartel for his campaign. So you know, um, he absolutely had the whistleblower's complaint that identified the prime suspects and confirmed the foul play and the tampering and leaking in our son's case in January of 2022, and did nothing, really did nothing. So Ted Cruz is really a rotten, worse than that. He really needs to also be in handcuffs too. So this is not him and Montoya can share a cell together, right? Um, so that is the news for today. It that's not all of the news for today, but those are the highlights. And I will absolutely be on again tomorrow. Thank you, Laura, so much for coming on this late, and your love and your prayers.